Hi guys, it's Brendan Boyle from Palo Alto. Lovely day here. I think it's about 65 degrees. Hopefully the sun will come out soon. And I'm your instructor for Ideas to Action. So hopefully you guys recognize me. This is great. So we're really excited to have you for office hours. We're actually in my office in Palo Alto, so it's literally office hours. Next to me is Alyson Yamada. She's one of our star designers, engineers here in Palo Alto, working on all sorts of cool stuff with an amazing background. Alyson, just say a few words about yourself.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm a mechanical engineer here. That means I work on anything with a tangible or physical product to it. And I've worked on things from beauty and healthcare devices to clean burning cook stoves for use in Africa. So kind of a wide range of products and everything from concept all the way to production engineering. So she's an awesome person to help with office hours. She's fantastic at ideas and then fantastic at prototyping. So let's see, if you have questions for us today, go to the little question bar. You can find that in the side of the screen. Or where else can they ask us questions, Alyson? You can also tweet to us at IDEO U.
All right. So if you just joined, it's Brendan and Alyson. We're holding office hours in Palo Alto today. So we'd love to hear your questions. When you send in a question, tell us where you're from. We have a really amazing global class. I mean, from all over the world. So it's really fun to hear where you guys are from. So, yeah, introduce yourself. Right on. All right, let's jump right in with some questions. All right.
Sounds great.
Who's our first one?
So we have a question from Jace Lowe. And Jace says, when is it too early to jump into prototyping? When is it too late? What is the sweet spot so you push forward with the most innovative ideas?
Wow, all right, great question. So different levels of that question. So too early to start prototyping? Probably not too early, depending on if you can do a low resolution prototyping, what we like to call high thinking, but low resolution. That will answer some little question and might help you ideate and push further. It's probably too late if the presentation is tomorrow and you're expected to have a full working prototype kind of thing. So you have to kind of work backwards a little bit on the schedule and think about when can I start prototyping. Usually earlier is less pressure and you feel better and you come up with better stuff. Too late, yeah, you got to look at that schedule. So it's all dependent on the schedule. So good question, Jason, and I hope you're prototyping and it's going great. Cool. All right, I see one here. I loved your brainstorming session in the course. Thank you. What other tips and best practices might you have? What do you think about that?
Sure.
I know you've got a good one that I've seen you use with folks, so throw that one at us.
Yeah, so I guess one of the key qualities in brainstorming is that you develop a wide array of ideas, and that comes from having a lot of different people in your brainstorming session. However, the difficulty comes when you're then trying to down select and vote on those ideas and trying to figure out what you actually want to take to the next prototyping level. So one tactic that I love to use is basically every Post-it note that you write an idea on should have a title and a picture. So a lot of times we'll get people who will just say, for example, we're brainstorming about bathtubs and they'll write bathtub. That's okay, that's great. But it's even better if it's written large so that somebody far away across the room who hasn't maybe been as involved in the brainstorm can still understand what you're talking about. But the best is if you have a title and a picture so that it doesn't even matter if I wasn't there, I can look at that and I can know right away. It's like an instant recall. Yeah, and liberal use of Post-its, they're a really nice, simple tool to sort and separate and cluster and thread. So don't be shy in using the Post-its and just write down the headline of the idea. I see too many people writing a whole paragraph or trying to explain the idea and sell the idea. That's not what a brainstorm is about. Lots of ideas is what it's about. So great. Thank you. Awesome. Welcome to those who are just joining us. You're a little bit late, but that's okay. We're at office hours for Ideas to Action. I'm Brendan, and this is Alyson Yamada, who's an all-star designer here at IDEO, and she's helping out with the office hours. So thank you, Alyson. Thanks for having me, Brendan.
So cool. So we're in Palo Alto today. What are your stories, and how did you get where you are? What advice would you give to an aspiring designer?
That's a great question.
You start. You have an amazing story. So.
Yeah, so my journey to IDEO was a little roundabout. So I actually, before I went to college to study engineering, I was a professional ballet dancer. And that was sort of my life goal and my life's passion. But unfortunately, 2 years into the profession, I got a very serious hip injury. And so I had to stop dancing. And through my surgery, my surgeon put me in touch with a biomechanical lab at Stanford that was actually studying my specific injury. So I started out actually as a patient in that lab. And eventually they noticed that I was asking a lot of like mechanically minded questions, a lot of build oriented questions. And so one of the PhD students who was studying my injury said, you should really consider taking a physics class. And that was about my junior year of college. And I did not look back after that. I soon after made the switch to engineering. And that's how I learned about IDEO. That's how I got in touch with awesome people like Brendan.
Wow. Well, thank you. That's such a cool story. Mine is educated as an engineer, had some engineering jobs, and then found what I really loved was the front end, the ideation session the most. And then I started a company. I had 10 ideas and 3 were actually in the toy realm. I thought I was going to start a toy manufacturing company, and then it actually sort of evolved into a toy invention company where I had to like come up with ideas and prototype them. So exactly what the course is about, I had to figure out how to make a living doing what we're teaching here. And then that company was acquired by IDEO several years back, and it sort of built that group within IDEO up bigger and more exciting. But yeah, it's sort of really following what I found myself most engaged in, which we use a lot here. It's like that's probably the kind of work we want to pull in, what people really want to do. It just makes you a better innovator. So the advice for aspiring designers would be, where do you put your time? And that's usually where you're going to put your where all your energy is going, and that's where you should start following. It's sort of examine what you find most interesting to do, and what I talk about a little bit in the class is a playful mindset. So the opposite of play isn't work; it's boredom. So we want to stay creatively challenged, and a ton of effort, ton of work. Let's say work in quotations around this engagement sort of thing. Great question.
That's awesome.
All right, what else do we have here?
So we've got from Raul in Bogota.
Wow, cool.
When do you prefer to use different types of prototyping methods? Are certain applications feedback or times in the project?
Well, what's your take on that one?
Yeah, so I guess one of the methods that it's not really a method as much as it is a tip. So my sort of rule of thumb when I'm prototyping, especially to explore or to delve deeper into an idea, is that one prototype always answers one question that I have. So as much as possible, I try to sort out the different design challenges that I may be addressing in one single product. So whether that's how does this snap come together? How does this enclosure fit together? Is it a twist? Is it a push? Is it a lock? So I'll make a prototype that addresses that single interaction and only that single interaction. And the reason why I like to do that is because then at the end of the day, when I'm comparing and trying to figure out which design to go with, I can see each of those prototypes as more of an ingredients list. It's not a this or that. It's, well, the lock from this worked really well and the twist from that worked really well.
I love that, because I see too many folks trying to answer everything with one prototype and they don't answer anything well. So breaking it apart, the challenge apart, will help you move it further faster. So good. All right, good question there. Again, we're in Palo Alto. If you're joining us a little late, I'm Brendan. This is Alyson, a star designer here at IDEO, and we're having office hours. So when did design thinking not work to solve a problem? I don't know. Myself, I probably true for you. We see everything as sort of a design challenge. So whether it's how to get the chores done around the house, or how to decide where to go on a trip, we see sort of everything as a design problem. I think it doesn't work if you're trying to play the design thinking challenge game, and the rest of the folks don't know what it is, and they don't get it, sort of thing. So you have to sort of, if you're in a team environment and you're saying, hey gang, I'm going to try design thinking, you need to like get them up to speed, either teach them yourselves or have them take this course or something similar. That's when it doesn't work, when people don't understand the process.
And I think for me, I more think of design thinking not as much of a process as sort of a mindset and a way of thinking. So in that sense, it can be applied to pretty much anything, whether it's a design challenge or not.
Right on. Maybe my contractor isn't using design thinking enough because he's like 6 weeks over on a problem project. So here's one. Again, if you're ready, sending in questions, tell us where you are and who you are. We'd love to give a shout out to you. I hosted a brainstorm last week, but got stuck halfway through. What tips do you have to keep the brainstorms more lively? So if you get stuck, sometimes if it just gets quiet. It's like you're listening to a radio show and then the DJ stops talking. All of a sudden, the energy on the show is dead, right? So dead air. So what I usually do is have a couple different topics that are around this topic, so I can throw that one up. The other thing I like to do is if it slows down a little bit, is have some questions around creating lists, because a lot about brainstorms are making connections. So you could break apart your how might we topic or your challenge and say, let's make a list. So if this was all around redesigning, let's say, for example, a hotel experience, what are things we find in hotels? What are things we find, in houses? And then how would you sort of make some connections? So list making is a real powerful tool, and that'll sort of bring the energy back up. The other sort of trick that almost too cheap of a trick is you bring in some energy, i.e. some candy. But if we're trying to avoid sugar, maybe you could bring in some fruit or something like that. All right, well, let's see another question.
So also remember, if you're asking questions, you can type it in the little question bar, and remember to say your name and where you're from.
All right, this is from Becky in LA. All right, Becky, right on. What projects are you currently working on, and what have you most recently prototyped?
So I unfortunately can't say exactly what I'm working on for confidentiality reasons, but I can say that it's a medical device. And so one of the fun things that I've been working on is a bunch of silicone castings. So taking different form factors of the product and casting them into an elastomeric material. So it's been fun and super hands-on.
Yeah, and you've seen some of the prototypes from the Toy Lab in the course, which are always fun. And so again, some of those really illustrate the low-res prototyping, but high-res thinking. As we get further along in those projects, then we do much higher-res prototyping. But by that point, we've answered most of the questions, and we know what we're going to be spending sort of serious dollars on. But yeah, we're working on some really cool, let's say, vehicles, small vehicles with wheels that go fast. Some prototyping we were doing last week was a ton of fun. But again, it's just creatively satisfying to have something here and get it out and build something in front of it. You will get better feedback.
Awesome. So we have from Caroline in London.
All right, Caroline's
awesome.
Evening time there.
Divergent thinking has proven difficult to introduce into my workplace. Think stale, data-driven. Help. How do I make the case for creativity and new ways of thinking?
Yeah, so challenging. We're so trained, all of us, especially engineers, for convergent thinking. Like make a decision, answer this question. That's how we got to where we are. We did so much convergent thinking. Anytime you're taking a test, you're converging on trying to get an answer, and you get through the day by making decisions. So divergent thinking is really challenging for any group of people. So you really have to get people to play along for 30 minutes and explain. We're just going to try to get as many ideas. Later, we can converge all we want. We can, so it's the challenge of getting people to play along with you. You have any other ideas on that?
Yeah, I guess for me, the one thing that I always try to remind groups when I am working, and it seems like there's a little bit of discord with having divergent thinking, is I say that it's always easier to scale back a wild idea than it is to amplify a small idea. So it's always better to kind of go crazy, like diverge, as you said, and then you can rein it in later.
I think people also start to worry like, oh, we got to change our whole process because we're going to be constantly diverging and brainstorming all the time. And that's not true. At IDEO, that's not true. We have parts of the process where we will be very divergent, but parts where we have to converge. There's schedules, there's budgets, there's deadlines. So it's not as scary as people think, and it's a lot of fun. So they should be having a ton of fun in these sessions. So get some folks who do like to play and sort of have that energy, and then hopefully someone else will sort of hear what's happening in that corner. Yeah. Even in big data area, I'm sure it's, well, we've done projects in that. We can make it fun. All right, what's this one?
From Mohit, we have, what is the difference between design thinking and agile? Where does one end and the other begin?
Thoughts on that? I think the agile process is quite proven in software and other things, as far as my recollection. I might be off on that. But I want to think about that one, and I'll post a better answer on that, because I'm not up to speed on that one. So congratulations, whoever that was. You stumped the professor, so good job. But we will get back to that, we promise. All right, can you explain more about the 3 lenses, why it's so important when you use them in most consulting practices? I think the lenses are a lot like, Tom Kelly talks about it in his book, 10 Faces of Innovation. We're really used to having one hat on when we come into the office. You may have a title, it's design engineer or toy inventor, so we're really used to that hat. He talks a lot about, there's one hat that people pull up in meetings all the time, and everyone understands this role, called the devil's advocate, right? So it's easy to do, we've probably all done it, and it's kind of a big bummer when you're presenting an idea and you say, here's this awesome thing, and everyone's, the excitement in the room's going along, and then all of a sudden someone goes, let me play the devil's advocate, which basically means I'm going to shoot down your idea, right? So that's lens around that. But I'd love to think of this, how many different types of lenses could you be? Could you, what if your organization had so many other types of roles that were acceptable? Like, let me play the modern day anthropologist, or let me play the experimenter, the slash prototyper. What if we push this idea further? So thinking about kind of roles you can play at work, we're really comfortable, you know, you get a call from home and it's one of your kids and you put on your parent role, right? So you understand that. But how do we go through the day creatively thinking of different types of roles? We can do different types of lenses and we can put on. So I think it should be very fluid and sort of dependent on the need.
So we have from Bernard in Paris, are there specific tools for organization design or service design as opposed to physical product design?
You have a thought there?
Well, that's a really interesting one. I mean, as a mechanical engineer, I mostly only work on physical product design. But one of the things that I love about prototyping for service design or organization design is it's about the people. And so one of the things that you can actually prototype is roles in a service, roles in an organization. And we've frequently had clients come in that we've worked with where we actually have them role play, or we're bringing them into a space that we've mocked up and asking them to go through what that service actually looks like.
Yeah, and then for org design, because we do a lot of that in the firm, we'll prototype, but you see a lot of organizations come up with this big new plan and then they roll it out with no prototyping. So we'll prototype it in a little corner of the, or one division or one group, and see what works and what we can learn from it before we'll just recommend that this gets rolled out through the organization. So prototyping for us makes something physical, digital, experience, makes something tangible so you can share that in some way. Yeah, so a prototype isn't just a physical thing. Certainly, we do a lot of digital prototypes, and you saw some of those in the course around just the fun way to prototype an app. You know, our teams have done really simple stuff versus just doing any software at that point. All right, this is from Carrie in Santa Barbara, a beautiful part of the world. Have you applied design thinking to your physical injuries, like your hip, Alyson?
It's funny, before this, Brendan and I were actually comparing physical therapy stories and the tactics we have for both of our sports. I would say definitely. I think the process of having gone through that physical injury has given me so much more empathy for the people that I'm designing for. And I work actually a lot in the medical device space. So a lot of the people that I am designing for are people who have long-term disabilities or conditions or illnesses. And having been through such an emotional experience like that, it's helped me to, as Brendan was saying, is like to put on a different hat and see things through the lens of those people I'm designing for. Yeah,
so cool. Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Good question.
Yeah, great questions. Keep them coming.
Okay, if you are joining us late, we're in Palo Alto. I'm Brendan. This is Alyson. You can ask us questions. You can click on the little corner Q&A on your screen. Tell us where you're from, who you are. We'd love to hear that. We've got folks from all over the globe on this class, and several of you are in cool teams. And you might want to tell what team you're on. That's super exciting. We had some feedback on some of your prototypes. I think that was last week or the week before, and it was really exciting stuff. So I'm looking forward to seeing where you guys are pushing those ideas. And then you can also tweet us at, where can they tweet us at?
At IDEO U.
Okay, at IDEO U.
Right here.
Okay. So fun, you guys. All right, we got another question?
Yeah.
Wow. From Sweden.
Rodolfo
Rodolfo.
in Sweden.
That's awesome. Okay. Do you have some examples about learning design, helping orgs to design ways to constantly learn from their work? Yeah, I think maybe I'll let you think a little bit about an answer, but I think at first, setting yourself up or setting your organization up to actually believe you're a learning organization. And we really feel that and believe that at IDEO, because we're taking on projects, we're solving tough challenges, and we hope we're creating impact for our clients. But for us, we want to be constantly learning. It's why one of the things that attracts folks to our organization is they get to work on all sorts of different types of challenges. Occasionally folks really want to hone in on health or wellness, and they get to dive deep and go farther on that. But they want to learn about all these different things. So just having the mindset of you are in a learning organization and spreading that throughout your culture, I think will be a good start. I know we're doing a lot of this work. We have a Design for Learning studio up in San Francisco that's really doing some forefront work on this. They're helping Peru redesign their education system and doing cool things like that. So you can probably find more about that on IDEO.com.
Great. So we have from Mohit in Bangalore. I'm not sure what the difference is between feasible and viable. Is feasible always technical? So feasible, yes, usually refers to, is it technologically possible? Viable more refers to, like, from a business standpoint, is there a place for this in the market? And then, of course, we have the desirable, which is, do people want it? And that's sort of where the IDEO and the design thinking process comes from, where it stems from. Great question.
Yeah, Mohit, that's a good sort of thing to be wrapping your head around, and it'll help you with your project, deciding on where is that sweet spot between sort of all three. Where do you go to be inspired? Books, YouTube channels, places? What's the last place you went to be inspired?
Well, actually, London. I know there was somebody earlier calling in from London. So the Victoria and Albert Museum in London, the V&A, is one of my favorite museums. And I was just there in January visiting an old professor. So that's one of my favorites.
Right on. Yeah, it's a really nice question. If you're in the corporate world and you have to travel, I see so many folks who travel, get there late the night before, check in the hotel, go to the meeting, then book back to the airport. If you can, use that trip, leverage an afternoon or something, and I call it bookending. Can you find somewhere that's inspiring you in that area? So that's one way. If you're not traveling, I suspect around you, we're really fortunate to be in the Bay. There's so much stuff you can go do to see and be inspired with. But I always tell my team, it's up to you to stay inspired. I'm going to give you tips and other things around stuff, but you should be finding out. And this question is a great example. You're trying to find out things in a way that you can be inspired. So one, I'm not worried about you because you're asking the right question, right? So you're going to find some cool stuff, and I suspect you got some neat things. The easy tip for me is around the travel. And then I've started to read, try to read 20 minutes in the morning just on different things, because if I read at night, I just fall asleep. But read in the morning, it sort of sets my day in this something interesting. And so I won't read the email first thing, because that just sets your. And then I heard another nice tip. Before you check your email, check your schedule. Because the schedule is things that you put on there, you planned about, you've actually made some thought about it, versus the email could be someone just sent you something 10 minutes ago, and that's sort of urgent but not important. So good.
That's a great question. I think one of the things that I like to do is when I meet people for the first time, that's like what I use as a conversation starter, because I can then just add it to the list of things that I can look into and get inspired by.
Really cool. My team's using a group app to put anything we find inspiring on it, so we can all just find it there versus log up the email. And it's easier because if you're on your phone, just take a picture and then everyone's got it that way. So that's a nice trick. So you can try that with your team. Just use a WhatsApp or something like that, and just use it for inspiration only. All right, from Aaliyah in Cleveland. All right, so I grew up in Michigan, so nice Midwesterner. Fear of failure is a big stumbling block. How might we inspire or facilitate a team to move beyond that fear? Yeah, no one likes to fail. We talk about it, but failure is like a bummer. But if you can fail quickly and learn from it, then it's better. We used to say before our marketing folks got on us, fail early, fail often, and they were like, "Can we talk about succeeding at some point?" So eventually get there. But yeah, it's a cultural thing. We all don't want to look bad in front of our peers or look bad, judge bad in front of ourselves, right? So it's a cultural thing. So we do a lot of like quick warm-ups around whatever the subject is. So it makes it sort of a safer place. The class I teach over at the Stanford D School, we do these warm-ups, and it just sort of illustrates to the class, like, oh, there's something different here besides we're all like super important. We got to like make our points out, and so it's like bring it down to a little bit, getting to know your teammates a little better. We spend probably too much time talking about like what happened over the weekend, but that makes us a little more human to each other, and you kind of, it's okay, right? So yeah, I think that's a couple of tips. Good luck on that. Sometimes it's really challenging depending on the organization, but we're going to motivate you and let us know how that works out. All right.
Leah in Walnut Creek, do you have experience in teaching design thinking to preteens or kids groups? Brendan, you know about this.
Yeah, so I teach a high school design thinking class once a year, and it's a week-long thing. And it's really, I find it super inspiring. I find high school kids can get it. I haven't done it to preteens. I kind of like the high school level, and after they've had a year of high school, because they've kind of started to figure out high school, now they're starting to think about college. So we bring in a lot of our newer designers whose path isn't so far away from them, and they can start to see, oh, that person is recently out of college. I can sort of see what that's like versus just how scary college is going to be. So good luck on that. I'd love to hear more about that. But we have a educator's toolkit on IDEO.com. I think you can, if you're an educator, you can look at that. But let us know how that works out.
Awesome. Just as a reminder, if you're joining us, when you ask your question, say what your name is and where you're from. You can also tweet at us at IDEO U. Yeah, we've gotten around the globe pretty good. We've gotten Sweden, Cleveland, where else? We had Walnut Creek. Some South America.
London, yeah, South America. Well done, class. All right, what's our question? So from Devin, we have, how do you apply your approach to broader talks, like strategic planning for an organization? What do you think he means by broader talks? Like he's going to give a talk to an organization, or? Yeah, strategic planning for an organization. Well, I guess the key thing that I'm noticing here is it's not as much about the outcome that you're designing for. So whether you're designing for an organization or for a service or for a system, right? It's, I think one of the key things about the design thinking process is your ability to go broad and to think about not what is technologically feasible or what is viable from a business standpoint, but like, what could this be? What should this experience be, regardless of what it is? Yeah, I think when you start thinking strategy or bigger sort of platforms around that, you probably want to go look at our first IDEO U course around inspiration and sort of synthesize a lot of that inspiration into sort of bigger opportunity areas or strategies. So if you haven't taken that class, that might be something you want to put on your list. So great. All right, what is it like to work at IDEO? What inspiration can we glean to bring creativity to our organizations? That's great. I think for me, one of my favorite parts about working here is the people, and not just the fact that they're great people and talented people, but the fact that the way we build our teams for any given project is you're usually the only person in your discipline on that team. So, for example, I'll be sitting next to an industrial designer and a product designer and maybe a design researcher, and we're all in the same space, like elbow to elbow,
working on the same problem. And so going back to Brendan's point about the 3 lenses, or seeing things from different perspectives, is that really allows you to gain that diversity and that breadth of ideas and knowledge.
Yeah, it's the people, I totally echo that. It's a lot of effort. I talked about it earlier in the hour around the opposite of play isn't work. For us, it's engagement. So it's like being really creatively satisfied and working a lot of effort. And so finding challenging things. Yeah, and I think there's something about this sort of attitude here. Design thinkers are very optimistic. They believe there's gonna be a better future, and they're gonna be part of it because they're working hard on it. So I think having optimistic people is neat. And then you yourself assuming everyone on your team is an A, like an A+ person, and that just makes life better, because if you assume everyone's an A and they'll sort of step up. Yeah. Monday, Friday, not that big a difference. Occasionally Friday, I look forward to doing something over the weekend, but Monday I look forward to coming and hanging with the team and rolling up our sleeves.
So we have from Atticus, can you give us an example or describe in more detail how one can prototype an organizational design? How do you test the prototype with those affected by the design?
Yeah, we talked about this just on an earlier question that was kind of similar, but we've done this with organizations, and it's hard to talk too much in detail because of confidentiality, but it's a lot about prototyping this with one group, one team, one division, depending on the scale of the project. So, and then seeing how it flushes out. Like we've prototyped, a lot comes up with space in the company space in organizations. Like I got an office, this person doesn't have an office. So there's a lot of that, and it's really challenging because folks who have an office all of a sudden don't want to give it up. And we believe space is one of the most underutilized resources that a company has. And not in the space, like if you come to IDEO, it's not about making the space look cool. It's about what we call the we space. How does the space help we as a team perform better versus the me space? Like, so there's a lot that we look at our space around organization innovation behaviors. So if we're helping an organization redesign space, and that could be their strategy, we won't say go to an open format. It'd be a lot about looking for insights, and then coming up with lots of ideas on what could make your space better, and then prototyping in certain areas, and then seeing what works.
Yeah, I was going to say one really good example of that, and you can find that on our website, is a project that we did for Walgreens a couple of years ago around their pharmacy redesign. And it wasn't just about the space. It was about how the pharmacists were interacting with the customers coming in through the door. And so by changing the space, they were able to change that organization and change those roles. But it's a really great story, and it is public, so you can look it up on our website.
All right. Good question, Aggie.
So we have from Kay in Waterloo, Canada. How do I organize the research to feel confident I have covered all the bases before we start visualizing and prototyping? That's a great question. I guess one tactic that I've used in the past is we call it like bookending the users that you're interviewing and talking to. So obviously you always want to talk to experts because they have an expertise that for us as sort of like broad and lateral thinkers, we don't necessarily have. But then the 2 other groups that I really like to talk to are what I call super users. So those are people who use a lot of the product that you're designing. And then the non-users, those are people who, for whatever reason, they either refuse to use the product or they've never used it before. So from there, the feedback that you're getting and the information that you're getting is from one group, they're able to compare to their current knowledge of that product. And for the other group, it's like they're discovering it for the first time. So it brings in that joy and delight into the design process that the super users may not be able to give you a taste of.
Yeah, I really like your bookending, and that's what we do a lot of here. It's really tough because you could spend years researching, and people do. But at a certain point, again, schedules, budgets, you need to feel confident. What we really like is you feel confident about a strong insight that your competitors haven't uncovered or you haven't uncovered. And that's something you can go back and check your ideas on. Do they resonate with this insight in your prototypes?
Great. So we have Leah in Cleveland. Welcome back, Leah.
Leah, you're a star student. You get 2 questions in, so well done. All right.
So Leah says, what is the wildest idea you ever heard during your ideation sessions that actually came into fruition? Ooh, I've heard a lot of wild ones.
Yeah, a good question. So I'm not worried about Leah because you got the right question. It's usually not the wildest one. It's one that gets. I love this whole thinking, and I wrote a book with John Cassidy on it called The Klutz Book of Inventions, and the whole thing is from brilliant to ridiculous. So, and the book's filled with 162. You decide if they're brilliant or ridiculous ideas, and it's perfect if you're 10 years old or you have a mindset of a 10-year-old, which is really good. Because a lot of them just seem so ridiculous, but if you believe in a sort of super optimistic future, you could think they're all could be believable. But I think a really good brainstorm session will have enough of these ridiculous ones that then you can pull them back a little bit and tweak them into something that is really believable and good. So I know in our things that in the toy stuff that we've hit, a lot of them came out of stuff that was ridiculous. Those ideas actually didn't come to market. Or even prototyping, but we pulled back on them. We got to a place we would have never gotten before. So keep pushing your ridiculous ideas. It's more fun that way too, and you can pull them back.
So we have from Bernard in Paris again. How many prototypes on average do I aim for? I say go for quantity. The more, the better.
Yeah.
I recently wrapped a project with Steve, who's another one of our incredible toy designers here. And I think in one day we made over like 25 or 30 prototypes. And those were kind of building for an entire play system. But you can easily get through, one every couple of minutes. Remember that it's not the resolution.
Yeah, depends on what material you're using, other things. But yeah, more the better, but answer questions. We've seen organizations that will do just one prototype and it's going to look beautiful. It's going to be awesome. It's machined, stainless steel or something like that. By the time it gets reviewed, it's so much has been invested in it. If it doesn't work out, man, you're toast, right? So try to get those prototypes out early and fast, so you can answer something.
And I would say that it's not so much the end result of the prototypes, right? Your prototypes are a tool for learning and a tool for discovery. So as soon as that prototype answers that question that you have, it's time to move on. It's time to get to the next thing.
All right, so if you're joining us super late, or maybe you woke up in some part of the world, which is awesome, it's Brendan and Alyson in Palo Alto. Lovely day here, and we're answering questions on office hours. So it's so cool. Keep the questions coming. So do you have any more tips or tricks on how to get people to play more, or at least embrace the mindset of play?
Good question.
Yeah. Really good question. Sometimes you need to, you said tips or tricks, so here's one, is you don't just come in and say, hey guys, we got to play more, right? Like that will work in my class, but it might not work in an organization. So you might want to sort of slide around a little bit and say, hey guys, why don't we try more exploration in this project? Or let's really get out in the world more and dive in more. So, there's exploratory play. That's a big part of ideation. Let's try to do some more empathy or maybe some role playing. So, that's really, let's go observe customers or pretend we're customers. And then let's do some more constructive play. Everyone loves to build stuff, so, it's prototyping. So I think you want to try using initially words like explore.
Yeah.
I find good luck with that. So, and then before you know it, everyone's in this mindset, which would be great. Okay, we got a few more minutes, so we got a few more questions coming.
Final questions. We have from Dolores in Spain. When have you seen beliefs or values or mindsets block the design thinking possibilities? Have you ever found it impossible to implement?
Yeah, we found it impossible, depending on the culture. Sometimes the client won't collaborate. They won't be part of the process. They just want it, want the final, and it's rare, but sometimes we'll fire the client because they won't be. We know it won't work. We'll put it this way: if they won't collaborate, they won't try what we're working on. Usually, it's not that severe. What happens is they're very doubtful. They think we're kind of messy, and they don't see this sort of. It looks chaotic at first because we want a solution, and you guys are out being inspired and then come up with all these ideas. So, but they'll start to sort of see results pretty quick, especially these low resolution prototypes. But if you have a tough tough culture, it's a challenge.
Yeah, I think the hardest part about learning to embrace our process is being comfortable with ambiguity and being comfortable with not having the answer right away. And as Brendan was saying, we also see a lot where people will come in, and we've all been in brainstorms, or we've all been in meetings where somebody says, oh, that's not possible. But it's about suspending that for a while to come up with what could be possible.
Yeah, that's why I love some of you guys are forming teams. So the team, there's a lot of power in the team. So if it's in an organization, you have that team, share the results and say, hey, we took this class and this is what we did. Now you can tell a story around something and then apply it to a different problem inside your company.
So we have a question that says, advice for us on iteration. When do we know to stop? What feedback should we look for? Great question. So for me, when I'm prototyping, I'm always prototyping and keeping in mind that I'm going to take this and talk to users again, that I'm going to bring it out into the field and get that feedback. So I try to be as clear with my prototypes as possible so that I can get the feedback that I'm looking for. And that process is cyclic. It could go on and on and on. And that ultimately comes down to a matter of what the project is and what is required for the project.
When do you know when to stop? Usually it's a budget, a deadline, something's coming up. What feedback should you look for? All the key stakeholders, so they know, they have a feeling what you're developing before you present the big ta-da moment. They're like, oh yeah, we had some saying on that. So yeah, so if you don't stop, it's just going to be pure research. So normally the deadline will help you. I think, we're down to our last question.
Last question.
Okay. What is the best advice you received? Who was it from? And why did it matter to you? Wow, the best advice, that's a tough one. I'll let you answer it more seriously. I heard some really great advice. Make your bed every day. It's just like, it was a Navy SEAL who did a awesome commencement speech, but it was really about accomplishing something immediately when you get out of bed, and that's going to set your mindset to get things done. So I thought that was kind of cool. So did you make your bed today, Alyson?
I did make my bed.
So did I. All right.
I'm a little OCD though.
All right. Do you have any? Do you recall any good advice?
For me, it's just comfort with being able to explore. That you should never feel like you're pigeonholed, whether that's in the work that you're doing, in life, in everything. So being comfortable with just living in ambiguity and just constantly exploring.
Yeah, I think it's when you get feedback, we're so internalized to defend our idea versus accept that feedback. So I had that advice pretty early, and it's a tough one because I try to encourage it with my students. Accept that feedback and you decide if it's worthwhile or not, but don't defend it, your idea right away. To see where it's heading. Hey guys, thanks so much for being here. Keep cranking on the class. It's so exciting to have you in it. Do your work or your play, your engagement, and it's super fun. Alyson, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
This is our great guys. Good luck.
Have a great rest of your class.
Yeah, talk to you soon.